Representative Johnson, would you like to move your bill?
Yeah, I move that House File 1192 be re-referred to the Committee on Higher Education and Career Readiness Policy and Finance.
Thank you. Representative Johnson moves that House File 1192 be re-referred to the Committee on Higher Education and Career Readiness Policy and Finance. Representative Johnson, please present your bill.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. This bill is about safety on the farm. And it's been working its way through the legislative process, and I deeply appreciate this committee hearing it. Minnesota's had kind of a checkered past or an up and down past on how we address safety on the farm. And this is an attempt to kind of move us forward and building on work that that we asked the Department of Agriculture to do last year. They have formulated a farm safety task force or work group and came up with this document. And this document did a number of things. One, it gave us the history of how we've addressed farm safety in Minnesota. It helped us understand better the impact and the breadth of the problem of safety on the farm. This is working safety. And it also gave a set of recommendations that to the legislature to move forward with it. This bill represents several of those recommendations, which I think are an important next step in addressing farm safety on the farm. Real quickly, I don't think I have to go into it in depth, but 30% of workplace fatalities in 2014 were on the farm. Yet only 2% of our workers work on the farm. And so we've got a farm safety, workplace safety issue, and it's time to address it now. What this bill would do in terms of the finance end is would do several things. First of all, for free, it establishes the Farm Safety Working Group, and I think that's really important. We need that established over time. Secondly, it would provide some seed money from the general fund to the Commissioner of Agriculture to kind of work with farm safety issues with associated organizations and also to work with youth groups. And because we know the young are involved with this, we want our young people safe on the farm. It would also address the need to get back to the good old days when Extension at the University of Minnesota had someone who was on staff focused on safety on the farm. And all of these were recommendations that came out of the group. And so I'd like to ask several people to testify on the benefits of the bill. I'll start with Andrea Vahl with the Department of Agriculture.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. And Ms. Vahl, please restate your name and who you represent for the record. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Again, my name is Andrea Vahl, Assistant Commissioner at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. I also oversee the farm safety program at the department, and we're just here to voice our support for House File 1192. As Representative Johnson had mentioned, we convened a farm safety working group last year along with the Minnesota Safety Council. And there was a clear need for a discussion about kind of taking stock of everything that's going on with farm safety in our state and what we can do to address these issues. And we came up with a lot of wonderful recommendations, which this bill directly addresses. We think, establishing the Farm Safety Working Group officially is a really good place to start. We've got a number of folks here who will testify about just having that open dialogue, and that conversation is essentially important. And then also just allowing for the department to be able to oversee a number of these activities. I think it makes sense for the agency to have a presence in this realm because a lot of folks look to us for help and just see us as a resource. So we want to make sure that we have the resources to be able to be that resource for people. So we really appreciate that, as well as I think the number one thing that came out of that Farm Safety Working Group was that we need to have that extension person. They were sort of in the past really looked upon as the leader in the state and the major resource for folks to go to when it came to farm safety. And so we at the agency would really like to see that happen. So we are have major support for this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Vahl. We do have a question. Representative Keel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Ms. Vahl. Got a question for you. How have you seen in has there been an increase in farm accidents recently?
Ms. Vahl?
Mr. Chair, Representative Keel. So there was a Star Tribune series of articles that came out a few years ago where it said that it's, I think we are kind of slowly, it kind of goes in, it ebbs and flows. And I think at this point we have a slight increase, but it certainly isn't decreasing. So it's something that we want to make sure we're taking a look at. The other thing being that our the average age of our farmers here in the state is raising, and it's at 55. So it's just only going to become a bigger problem as folks, you know, aren't able to perform some of the tasks on the farm.
Representative Keel?
My other comment would be is, I recall a program, farm safety program that was promoted by Farm Bureau, actually with the surgeon years ago. That's how I scared my son into keeping his hands out of the auger. He's now running the farm. But my question is I don't even know if that is still existing or if that is welded into the extension program.
Ms. Vahl?
Mr. Chair, Representative Keel, I think you'll be hearing from Farm Bureau here shortly, but they certainly are a huge partner in this. They are doing a lot of great things with youth in particular, so they still have a number of programs that they run at this point. I don't know if that one specifically, but you'll be hearing from Farm Bureau shortly.
Okay.
Representative Keel?
I probably should wait to listen, but it was an excellent program because it really helped us to actually learn how to transport when there was injuries. And just FYI, sometimes farm accidents, I mean, this might be a great program, but sometimes farm accidents are just that. They are a reality of exhausted, hardworking people that make bad choices at a time when they shouldn't have. It seems like every so often we have somebody do something and everyone looks at each other and says, oops, should have known better. I have a really good friend that he's deceased now because he had health problems, but he was much older and should have known better and stuck his arm in something that he shouldn't have. He's really lucky he didn't lose his arm. But I'm a little concerned about how far we're going in regulating it because I know there's lots we already do on the farm. But I'm anxious to hear what everybody else has to say.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Vahl? If not, we're going to move on. Representative Johnson?
Just real quickly in response, I think I don't have the data as far as trends, but this raw number is pretty startling. Between 2011 and 2014, there were 78 deaths on the farm related to working on the farm. And it also, as the changing nature of the farm, where I think I don't have the data on this either, but there's more people working on the farm, people from different cultures. There's just an increased need for this. And then finally, as far as the Farm Bureau program, part of the, to reiterate, part of this bill does allow for some seed money for organizations like the Farm Bureau who are involved with farm safety to help them extend their efforts. And so I hope that addresses your questions.
Ms. Vahl?
And just, Mr. Chair and Representative Keel, just to kind of clarify, I think one of the things that we talked about in the Farm Safety Working Group is there wasn't really a desire to do any sort of official regulation on the farm. I think it's really just trying to reach those and get sort of the culture change in terms of making some of those choices when you're exhausted and maybe cutting corners here and there. So I think that's one thing that we definitely came to a consensus on was there wasn't any desire to have any sort of requirement or regulation on the farm when it comes to farm safety.
Good. Representative Johnson, do you have a comment or?
Yeah,
next testifier?
real quickly, that's certainly my intention as the author of the bill too. This is not about regulation.
Okay. To your next testifier. Thank you, Ms. Vahl. Next testifier.
Next, I'd like to ask Mr. Mike Schmidt from the University of Minnesota.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Schmidt. Please state your name and who you represent for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Michael Schmidt, Associate Dean in the College of Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resource Sciences and the University of Minnesota Extension. And I'm here today to lend full support for this farm safety bill. Kudos to Representative Johnson for leading this effort. Safety on the farm is an extremely important issue, as well as not just on the farm, but in the entire agricultural food chain. And this bill is getting addressing that safety concern. I want to also reference this report that was put together. I think that it really addresses some of the issues, and the recommendations in it are something that we really need to look at, getting back to, the importance of farm safety. There's multiple ways to address farm safety, on the farm, and we can talk about incentivizing, different pieces of equipment or different options, and we can talk about policy in that, but we believe at the University of Minnesota Extension that education is the key way to address farm safety. Education will last for generations, we believe. It's not just going to run out when a cost share program runs out. Education, I think, can address a lot of the issues that are going on, in the farm today. So we're very pleased to read in this bill the support of a renewal of the Extension Farm Safety Program. Unfortunately, that program has kind of eroded with time. Some untimely departures in our staff on campus, as well as some untimely departures of our program out in the counties. We need that, that emphasis on farm safety and that renewal of this program. So the University of Minnesota, wants to be part of this bill. We truly believe in concept what is written here is something that needs to be done. We're supportive of that. The roles described in this bill with the Farm Safety Working Group, along with the effort that the Department of Agriculture would be playing, and the University of Minnesota Education Program, we think it would be synergistic to reaching the goals outlined by Representative Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Do any members have questions for him at this time? Chair Anderson.
It'll be quick, Mr. Chair. To the testifier, yeah, this is a good program. I'm a little bit concerned about duplication between Extension and the Department of Ag. Especially, I look at page 2, line 30, developing programs, farm safety, and youth education. That, to me, sounds like 4-H and Extension, a perfect place for you folks to work with youth education. Could you comment on that? Would that be better addressed from your side in Extension?
Mr. Schmidt.
Mr. Chair, Representative Anderson, excellent question, and this is one of those where I think Extension in the department, we work together, and we believe that our role in implementing program is creating curriculum and creating that content where a farm safety program can then be rolled out, whether it be with the Department of Ag or with our county extension programs. But the role that we see Extension playing here is creating, the curriculum that then we roll out in various avenues and with various other partners, et cetera. So our role, we look at it right now as conceptually being in that, the applied research and creating the curriculum that the actual programs, fall under.
Chair Anderson. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Representative Johnson, do you have another testifier?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And two testifiers, Mr. Tom Peterson and Mr. Cole Ruprecht with the Farmers Union and the Farm Bureau, respectively.
Gentlemen, you can choose who goes first, but state your name and who you represent, and welcome to the committee.
Mr. Chairman, members, my name is Tom Peterson. I represent the Minnesota Farmers Union, and we too appreciate and support this bill. Really, a lot of this got started it was about a year and a half ago maybe, or maybe 2 years ago now, when the Star Tribune did quite a big story. If you haven't read it, you can go back and look at it on farm safety, and they took a long time to put this story together, and it highlighted a lot of the statistics and everything that Representative Johnson's brought up. Paul Austin with the Minnesota Safety Council, he couldn't be here today, but he's been working and helping lead us, together as a group and helping this effort. And I was able to attend several of these meetings of the ad hoc group, and frankly, we were surprised by the level of interest and support in a lot of the farm safety within our own organization. The tractor rollover bill, definitely saw a lot of interest and continued interest in people signing up for that, as well as the National Farmers Union. We did a series of videos this year, and we were surprised by the amount of people looking at those and the interest in that. So it was helpful as a group to get together to see what everybody was doing and to come up with different ideas. The one thing that kind of struck me was the need for grants and a lot of different groups doing different things. So we mentioned farm groups, but 4-H, FFA, different chapters. This last weekend, I was able to attend the Agri-Ability Annual Conference. If any of you aren't familiar with that, it's part of Equip-A-Life, but it's farmers who have suffered some kind of disability on the farm in an accident. It's hard, you know, to go and sit with some of these folks, but it's also inspiring because they still want to farm. So they've, you know, had an accident, and, you know, I think a lot of things are changing too. You talk about on the farm. One thing I noticed is the amount of people that have been hurt by these large square bales. You know, we've changed from the big round bales to large square bales, and handling those, a lot of people have become paralyzed having those fall on them, which is really an interesting or different. We talk about agriculture changing, but it's just different thoughts or different ideas, that things that we haven't talked about. So I think this is a really important piece, and appreciate Representative Johnson for carrying it. Thank you.
State your name for the record, who you represent.
Mr. Chair and Committee, my name is Cole Ruprecht with the Minnesota Farm Bureau, and we too support this bill. Farm safety is a very high priority for Minnesota Farm Bureau, and we want to thank Representative Johnson as well as the rest who have been involved with this bill. One of the things I think that is unique about, or neat about the bill is the bringing together of the group and the sharing of resources. A lot of our different organizations have a lot of different resources, and by codifying this working group, the ability to share those resources and have some uniformity across the state. And to answer Representative Keel's question, Minnesota Farm Bureau still does several farm safety days across the state. They're conducted by our county farm bureaus, and we also have 2 safety trailers that are available across the state as well to help with those.
Thank you, members. Excuse me, are there any questions for either of these testifiers? Representative Keel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to reiterate the education. I'm not negating the education. I think it's very important that young people understand what is happening on the farm. There's a lot of dangers there, but there's a lot of protections if you handle things right. But having grown up, I saw a few neighbor kid that was told not to touch anything and was visiting and did anyway. And he still is with, he lost a finger, and I was out campaigning and he reminded me that I was there. Yes, that's right. But I do remember you were told not to. So, and my point of the education is great, but sometimes on the farm, I have 4 brothers. There's only one of them that has had multiple accidents, and most of the problem is he's too quick. He's just, he's still farming though, and has all his fingers and toes and arms, but he's had his arm in an auger, and yeah, he's done some interesting things, but he's fine. But even when he was a child, he fell out of a hayloft and actually jumped out of it, and so. Yeah, not head first, by the way. But I do think the education is very important for our students, but I like the local, I know our fire department does a annual spring where they bring a lot of students out. They do it for all the students in the school district, and they talk about all the different safety things that they should be doing, being able to put out fires and all of those things. And then I would also remind our farmers that when you're hiring somebody, you do need to educate them and help them to understand how they handle tractors, equipment. It's really important. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Does anyone wish to testify for or against House File 1192 in the audience? Okay, seeing no one, are members, any other? Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask you, when you design the group that does the work, do you have women farmers represented on here? And the reason I'm asking is I was recently at a training for women and tractors, and there was a lot of caution that was expressed by some of the people who were attending that, and I'm just wondering if you're making sure that we have some of our farm women who do more and more farming represented,
Representative
or
Johnson.
could they be added?
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I honestly don't know. Perhaps Ms. Vahl could explain that. But the comment is very apt in that about women on being involved with a task force. And because it makes me think back just that Mankato puts out a magazine, Women in Mankato, or Women in the Region, or whatever. And about 2 or 3 months ago, they highlighted women in agriculture, and the number of women doing important things in agriculture in south central Minnesota is notable. But I don't know as far as the
Thank you.
composition goes.
Mr. Chairman, it was just
Representative
pointed out
Clark.
to me that there's a number of citizen members, and maybe we could just make sure that one of those folks could represent our, on like this line 2.6, could include or be sure to represent women farmers. That might be one way to ensure
Yeah.
that. Oh, there's
Ms.
somebody who wants
Vahl?
to comment.
Coming down to,
Hello, Mr. Chair, Representative Clark. Yeah, so in terms of how the Farm Safety Working Group was already comprised, it was actually mostly women from the organizations that were part of that group. And so through this legislation, it will be through the open appointments process. So we'll be working with the commissioner will be appointing those folks for the open appointments, the citizen members. So we'll be certain to have that voice continue on that
Thank
working
you.
group.
I'm thinking, again, Mr. Chairman,
Representative
of
Clark.
the ones who are actually doing farming. Thank you.
Yes.
Are there any other questions from the committee members? Seeing none, Representative Johnson, any final comments?
Well, thank you. And again, this is an issue that just, I think, is central to what this committee seeks to accomplish. I think it's central to what we want to happen on the farm. And as Representative Keel indicated, there's a real human aspect to this. A young man that I know very well at home, his father lost a best friend on the farm this winter. And it was interesting, I was at a township meeting just the other day, and township officers, and happened to sit next to a township officer who shared the story that he lost his son on the farm. And so there's this human aspect. I don't like to ever forget that. And so I think it really compels that we move forward. Before I make my motion, I just want to indicate that a little bit of concern or question about the fact that this bill will be going to the Higher Ed Committee. I want to remind this committee that in the last couple of years, we provided substantial funding to the Department of Agriculture through this committee for a lot of funding that ended up going to the University of Minnesota. So there is I'm thinking of the AGREET program. And I'm thinking that, you know, I look at the University of Minnesota, 50,000 students, a lot going on, and farm safety could possibly get lost in the shuffle in there. Whereas in this committee, where we're focused on agriculture, we're focused on the needs of family farmers, that perhaps this is where the funding needs to come from. And I respect the view of the chair that this should go to the Higher Ed Committee. I understand that. But I hope this committee also considers that this may be the place for all the funding, including the extension position, should come through this committee.
Representative Johnson?
And with that, I renew my motion that House File 1192 be re-referred to the Committee on Higher Education and Career Readiness Policy and Finance.
That's a mouthful. Thank you. Representative Johnson renews his motions that House File 1192 be re-referred to the Committee on Higher Education and Career Readiness Policy and Finance. And Representative Johnson, the language in this bill pertaining to this committee's jurisdiction will be considered for possible inclusion in the Omnibus Agricultural Finance Bill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Against, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Representative Johnson.